say in '92. After this, he'll give you his name and talk to you about it. He's got several videos that are out on as far as like YouTube and stuff like that. Last year he came and talked to the football players. This year we had the opportunity to also include the girls basketball and the boys basketball too, so he took the chance. Just listen to what he's got to say. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to talk on today, but let's give it up for George Casey.
My mind begins unraveling as I start traveling through time. I shall not fear, for my destiny lies greater than that which is here. Through tunnels of darkness grows light, but it's suppressed by no movement. Motion becomes only a thought as I am brought for a second back to reality. But realness has no meaning. Meaning still I am lost, yet found. Bound by the shackles and chains that enslave my brain, leaving me motionless and standing still. But yet still standing, demanding more from life than life demands of me. Releasing my inhibitions, allowing my soul to be free. See, free is an idea that has made a promise. And we all know what happens to promises. They get broken. And so they break like glass. But like glass, I see through them. No, past them. For past them has no limitations. Past them lies that freedom that remains to be seen. That piece, that small piece of the American dream, that peace that calls for peace, so I can be at peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I pray that peace be with you. I wrote these words many, many years ago. And to me, they were just, at that time, just words on the paper, words on a piece of paper. But now, almost 15 years later, I read those same words, and they've given my life inspiration and motivation to continue to move forward, even though life continues to knock me down. What I want to talk about today is that champion instinct. That champion instinct that everyone in this room has. We're all champions. So let me talk champion talk to a bunch of champions. And I'm sure you'll be able to relate if you know champion talk. See, many years ago, I didn't understand what it is to be a champion. I moved from the 8th grade and became a freshman, starting all over again. And I decided to go out for the football team. We were doing two-a-days. At a particular time, we were doing up-downs. For this particular day, we had done so many up-downs that I could barely feel my arms. I couldn't feel my legs. Well, everyone here knows how hot it gets here. Hot. All I could think about in the back of my mind is I wish Coach would stop practice or give us a water break or some kind of break. So in my mind, I begged and I pleaded and I prayed. But it went on deaf ears because the coach kept blowing that whistle. More up-downs. I put a number in my head, and that number was 5. See, I convinced myself that I can only do 5 more before I totally gave up. And as I began to count down in the back of my mind, 5, 4, 3, I began to focus on the pain. That pain was punishing. And as I gave what I had to lift myself off that ground, I quit. I quit and I walked off that field. And I didn't just quit on myself that day. I quit on my teammates, those people that counted on me. I quit on those people who believed in me. I quit on my coaches. I quit on my friends. But I learned a very good lesson that day. That every time you do something once, every time you do it after that, it becomes just a little bit easier. So every time I quit after that time, it became just a little bit easier to quit. Just a little bit easier to quit. So much so that quitting became a habit for me. We all know what habits are. Habits are things we do without even thinking about it. So without even giving a thought to something, I would quit. But I didn't think much of it then. But that quitter attitude started a trickle effect. Before I knew it, I had graduated high school. I didn't have a plan. Just a few short years after high school, I found myself homeless. I wasn't living too far from here, less than a mile, where I would sleep in the backseat of my car on cold October nights. I would go to bed late and get up early so no one would see me sleeping in that car. All started with just one time quitting, as it became easier and easier. I found myself in Hinesville, Georgia, where there was a cousin of mine that stayed there. And that cousin helped to change the course of my life. Because at this time, my life was going nowhere. And it was going nowhere fast. She sat me down and asked me something that changed the rest of my life. She asked me, George, what are you going to do with your life? You gotta have a plan. You gotta have a plan. But unfortunately, I didn't have a plan. I had faith and talked to a Marine Corps recruiter who convinced me how fast he could get me to Parris Island, where they make United States Marines. I don't know if I was just that dumb and I fell for the bait, but I found myself Parris Island, South Carolina, standing on some yellow footprints where drill instructors were yelling at me. They gave us what we called an initial strength test. We had to do a series of sit-ups and pull-ups. You had to run 1.5 miles in less than 12 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, I got up on that pull-up bar and I knocked out 12 pull-ups. That was no problem at all. I got down on the ground and I rolled out 65 crunches. That was no problem. But that's when it began. Those thoughts in the back of my mind, those thoughts of defeat. So as a man thinketh, so shall he be. Those thoughts of defeat began to take over me again, begging me to quit, begging me to give up. But I was at Parris Island, South Carolina, where they make United States Marines. Didn't matter. I still quit because at this point it was easy for me to do. I quit less than 1 mile into the run. Totally gave up on myself. But again, there was somebody who came into my life. I'm asking you today, be careful, be mindful of people who come into your life because there's always a lesson to learn. You may not learn it now, you may learn it down the road, but there's always a lesson to be learned. There's a Buddhist proverb that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. going to teach it as I learn. A drill instructor came to me and he said, Casey, pain is only weakness leaving the body. Pain is only weakness leaving the body. As a man thinketh, so shall he be. I began to change my thoughts from defeat to thoughts of a champion. The thought that says I won't quit. I may take a break, a short break, catch my breath. But I won't quit. I won't quit. I won't quit. So I began to change those thoughts in my mind. 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 Be ye not conformed to this world. Be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. If you're not a champion yet, all you have to do is renew your mind. Begin to change your thoughts. Begin to change them from defeat to thoughts of a champion. You're all champions. You're all champions. Throughout my lifetime, I've watched great champions throughout my life. There was a champion back when I was in high school, a gentleman by the name of Riddick Bowe. Now, some of you, probably many of you, are way too young to remember Riddick Bowe. But at one time, he was a great champion. He was a great champion. World heavyweight champion. He wore the belt that said he was the best. Heart of a champion. Heart of a champion. Just so happened when I was at Paris Island, he decided that it was always his dream, it was always his wish, it was always his aspiration to become a United States Marine. So he retired from boxing in 95. He retired from boxing. He was at Paris Island the same time I was at Paris Island. The heavyweight champ was at Paris Island the same time I was at Paris Island. But the champ lasted 3 days. The champ lasted 3 days. Now you may ask me, how could the champ of the world, heavyweight champion of the world, how could he only last 3 days at Paris Island? Mr. Casey, you lasted 3 months and became a United States Marine. How could that be? Let me tell you something, when you become a champion, you have to commit to it. And that's where that champion fell short. He wanted to do something, he had the vision to do something, but he fell short because he didn't have the commitment. To be a champion, you have to have commitment. You have to commit to anything that you're doing. If you want to be great, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. The only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. If you want to be successful, if you want to be a champion, you have to commit and do the work. Another one of my great champions over the years. Some of you may have heard of him, Mike Tyson. Brutalizer. He used to beat people in the ring so bad that sometimes if you left and got some popcorn, you might miss a fight. Because it was over just that fast. It's over just that fast. But I watched Mike Tyson, one of my champions. I watched him in his last fight. As he just didn't have that heart in him. He didn't have that heart. It's like he just gave up. At the end of the fight, he got interviewed. And they asked him, Mike, what's wrong? And Mike looked at that reporter and said, I just don't have it anymore. I just don't have it here anymore. So sometimes at champ, we lose that fire. We lose that passion. We lose that desire to become great. But at all costs, you have to find a way to refuel that. As a champion, you always have to become better. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday. A A champ is about being better than you were yesterday. It's not about competing against anybody else. It's about competing with yourself. When it's time to pay up, will you put in the work? Will you dedicate yourself to progress? Will you dedicate yourself to becoming a champion? My last great champion called himself the greatest of all time. Many of you may have heard about this guy. He was born in a small town called Louisville, Kentucky, not too far from here. Not too far from here. Born Cassius Clay, became Muhammad Ali, greatest of all time. Greatest of all time. Now, how did he become the greatest? How did he become the greatest? Because at 12 years old, at just 12 years old, he discovered his purpose. He knew at 12 years old he wanted to be a boxer. He knew at 12 years old, without a shadow of a doubt, that he wanted to be a boxer. So he started being the first person in the gym. He started being the last person to leave because he wanted to be the greatest. I'm going to break it down to you. Sometimes they say to break it down in inches makes more sense. There's 365 days in a year. When practice is over, if you practice every day, just 15 more minutes, in 365 days, you'll have practiced over 5,475 minutes. 91 hours. You'll be 91 hours better than everybody else. I just think if you do that 30 minutes a day, 180 hours better than everybody else. If you want to be the champ, you got to put in the work. You got to commit. Learn through Muhammad Ali and watch the way he did what he did. I came up with what I call the GOAT principle of success. After Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time. And I believe if you do these 4 things, you'll be successful. You'll be a champion. The first is G. You have to set your goals. What do you want to accomplish? Set individual goals. Set team goals. Obviously, the team goal would be to win the championship. That's the big goal. Now, how do you begin to set small goals to get to that big goal? A small goal is, I'm going to work this many hours this week. To get to the big goal of winning the championship. Because I assure you, nobody gets to that championship, nobody gets to that victory on accident. It's all planned and calculated. They dedicate themselves. They put in the work. Everybody sees the game, but nobody sees the behind the scenes. When everybody is sweating, everybody is making a sacrifice. So begin to set goals toward championships, toward success. Next one is O, outcome. It's no more than a vision, an image. See, I can bring up something that may have happened 5 or 10 years ago. And with your imagination, you'll be able to see a picture. So I looked up imagination, and that's all that imagination is. It's an image to oneself. An image to oneself. I thought about it and looked up the creator of Disney World, Walt Disney. One of the men who have maybe possibly the greatest imagination in the world was once fired from a job, and his boss told him that he lacked imagination. lacked imagination. But see, he kept that image to himself. He kept that picture to himself. And he began to design his future based on that picture. How many people have ever put together a puzzle? See, when you put together a puzzle, you're looking at the picture on the box. That's your image. Now your job now is to make the puzzle look like that picture on the box. So what's your image to yourself? Now, people with low self-esteem, their image of themselves is low as well. But when you begin to raise that bar of possibilities, see, we already have a preconceived notion in our mind of what is possible. And anytime we get close to that threshold of what we say is possible, we begin to get fearful. We begin to get scared. There's a young lady by the name of Marianne Williamson who said our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Everyone in this room is great, and you're powerful beyond measure. Begin to lift the expectations of your imagination. Begin to see yourself as more than you are now. As a man thinketh, so shall he be. Starts in the mind. Everything starts in the mind. You have to begin to lift that image. See that championship. See yourself cutting down those nets. See yourself walking into that end zone. See yourself shooting that last basket. Until you begin to see it in your mind, it'll never happen. Everything in life is created two times. Once in the mind and once in reality. Once in the mind and once in reality. So be careful of that outcome, that picture. The next is A, accountability. That's a big one. Everybody on the team has to be accountable for their actions or lack of action. Everybody is on the team for a purpose. So you have to make sure you be that person. Do what you're supposed to do. And the last is T, thought process. Begin to think that you can. You know, they say if you can conceive it, you can believe it, you can achieve it. It's simple. It's simple. But not always easy. Not always easy. See, people who are not champions will give up when life begins to get not so easy. But when you begin to think like a champion, you begin to become a champion. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I want you to all realize the champions that are inside yourselves. When you become better, you begin to make everyone else around you better. We're all leaders. Don't wait for somebody to lead it.